Welcome back to a mini lecture on one of my favorite chapters. As you probably have already noticed, these mini lectures do not cover everything in the book, and you're responsible for everything that is in the chapters. So the purpose of these lectures is to give you a more in-depth understanding of what's involved in the topics discussed. I encourage you to take the International Business course, which will go into all of these subjects and more in greater detail. As I am reviewing the PowerPoints, I like to expand and add slides when I think it is appropriate. So you will notice information added that was not included in the publisher slides. And I do this to make the lectures more relevant to us and to provide additional information. And this slide is a good example. While a good slide in itself, reflecting the population distributions by continent, I prefer this one. To me, this picture provided by viewstheworld.net really reflects the population distribution. And basically what this map has done is to match the population distributions of the different countries and reflect it in terms of size on the map. So if the countries were sized according to their population, look how much larger China and Russia would be than the United States. And look at Canada. It practically disappears from the map. It takes all of Europe to match the same size as India and the surrounding countries. And South America is almost as large as Africa. So I find that from a visual perspective, this map shows me more. Now, everyone who lives in our part of Virginia should know something about international trade. After all, you cannot hardly drive somewhere without passing a truck in transit to and from the port, passing the port, or seeing merchant vessels in our waterways. Not only is the Port of Virginia a great economic asset for us in terms of jobs and commerce, but it also puts us on the radar to be compared with other ports on the East Coast, such as New York, Wilmington, Charleston, Jacksonville, Miami. Of course, there are also smaller ports as well, like Newport News and Morehead City, North Carolina. So when we are importing goods, we are bringing goods that are produced in other countries to the United States. And when we are exporting goods, we are taking the goods that we produce and we are selling them to customers in other countries. Now here are pictures of our local ports. The top picture is a picture of APM terminals, and the bottom picture is one of Portsmouth Marine Terminal. And if you're curious about where these terminals appear on the map, here is a good one. It shows Craney Island, APM, PMT, which is Portsmouth Marine Terminal, and NIT, Norfolk International Terminals. And when we look at the ranking according to the book in 2010 for how the United States stacks up in terms of best countries for doing business, you see that we are number 9. And I looked at the latest chart from 2012, and the United States has been pushed up to number 4 according to Global Finance magazine. Now this chart gives us a little more information about our business environment. Although we are number 4 in terms of ease of doing business, we are 13 in starting a business. So it sounds like Singapore is the place to be, since they hold the number 1 slot. Now, products that the U.S. exports are included in the tally when totaling our gross domestic product, or GDP. In this slide, exports contribute about 11% of our GDP. But look at China. 1/4 of China's GDP comes from exports, and Germany is even higher. Germany's exports account for 35% of their GDP. So what motivates these countries to export, or import for that matter? It is all built around the fundamental principle of competitive advantage. Now basically, a country is going to import those products that it cannot make, or cannot make efficiently, and it is going to sell or export those products that it can make efficiently. Now there is a little difference. That's a little different from absolute advantage. Absolute advantage means that that a country holds a monopoly in that product or good. So to give you a point of reference, I tried to find a chart on the internet that would definitively say whether or not there were countries that had an absolute advantage in any product. Guess what? It wasn't there. I didn't find it. The truth is, for a country to have an absolute advantage, they have to have a monopoly on producing the product or must be able to produce it more efficiently than all the other countries. So if we say that it's highly unlikely that one single country would export 100% of the world market in a product, we might be able to say that a country that exports 85% or higher of the world market has an absolute advantage as well. Obviously, they are the go-to country for that product. So to prove the point, let's look at the International Trade Center. Now, if we look at a product like essential oils, okay, and that's under section 33. We'll just look at essential oils, trade indicators, the graph for exports. We can see that France exports more of the product than any other country. Now, Germany and the United States also export some, as well as all those other countries. But France contributes the most. So if we were able to look into this a bit more, we might say that France has an absolute advantage. Another interesting one is mineral oils and petroleum. So if we look at mineral fuels, oils, then we see that Saudi Arabia and Russia, they look like they have the absolute advantage when they're compared to all these other countries that are shown. Certainly it's obvious that Saudi Arabia and Russia have the advantage here. So, is the U.S. a leader in anything? Well, of course. And let's think about it. What do we do better than anyone? Make arms and ammunitions and things in that product category. So let's see where we rank in there. So if we come down to arms and munitions, there we are. Guess what? We win. Followed closely by Russia and the United Kingdom. So from an economic perspective, does it seem smart that we would put political pressure on one of the few industries in which we have almost absolute advantage? Probably not so smart. Let's look at aircraft and spacecraft. Again, looks like we lead in that category as well. So ultimately, every country wants to sell to customers in other countries more than they buy from foreign producers. So we want a trade surplus, meaning that we export more than we buy. We want to avoid a trade deficit, which means that we are importing and buying much more than we are selling abroad. So if we are to put all of this attention on getting our products to foreign markets, then how are we going to do this? Well, we have a variety of ways to get our product overseas. It all basically comes down to how much money do you want to spend in developing a foreign market and how much control do you want. When we look at this chart, the cheapest way to get our products overseas is to license them to producers in other countries. Now, ironically enough, it might be the cheapest, but we also have the least amount of control. And if we decide that we want more control, then we are going to have to move on to one of the other options, which includes exporting, franchising, contract manufacturing, joint ventures, and foreign direct investment. Now, the book does a very good job of describing each of these strategies, so I will not go into detail here. Just keep in mind that as you move from left to right on this scale, you are spending more money, but you also have more control. Foreign direct investment, or FDI, will be the most expensive route to go, but it will also give you the most control. Now we're going to move into a discussion on global cultures. And we're going to spend a little bit of time here because I want you to see how diverse things can get in international trade. So let's take a bird's eye view of just how diverse things are in the world. Now, in terms of social structure, there are some very broad ranges when you think of social structure worldwide. Now, my professor at ODU used Africa as an example. And this image is the political map of Africa. You can see so many countries and borders, and each country is under its own government rule. But one of the things that makes Africa so wonderful yet so complex is how diverse the continent is in terms of social structure. Now, this is the tribal map of Africa. Each tribal boundary is indicated by the red lines, and the black lines are the modern national borders. So on a continent like Africa, where there is such diversity in social structures, you might be dealing in one particular country, but have to interact with possibly tens and tens of different social structures. Now, in terms of religion, I like this map, but I'm a little suspicious of the information, even though I can cite it, because the map is not dated, and you always run the risk of getting your hands on worn out and tired information when you can't tie it to a specific date. Now, the map comes from Wadsworth.com, from the Warren Matthews World Religions book, 3rd edition, and that book was published in 2010 by a professor at Old Dominion University, so I'm presuming that this information can only be so old. But you'll see here that where all the locations of this first color are blue, mostly Roman Catholic, where the countries are that are predominantly Roman Catholic. And then the red countries are mostly Protestant. The yellow countries are mostly Eastern Orthodox. And then you go into Islam. Sunni is represented by the green color. And then the Shia, which is represented by the burgundy color. And then you start getting into Hinduism in pink, and Judaism in yellow, and then the other, like the Chinese religions, Shinto and Buddhism up around Japan. But you can really see the diversity in terms of religion worldwide. So if you're interested in learning more about international cultures, you might want to visit the website called Global Gateway, and I'll take you there real quick at international.loc.gov/intldl/intldlhome.html. And the Global Gateway is a wonderful website for informational cultures around the world. If you click on Centers for International Research, you can see that there are plenty of documents here for your reading. You can also research guides and databases. And you might want to stop the video at this point and write down this website if you're interested in going back to it. Now, in moving on to currencies, the first thing that usually comes to mind is exchange rates. Now, the exchange rates give us a value for our currency relative to another one. If we have a dollar with a high value, then we can buy more stuff in that currency. Why is that important? It comes down to buying power. When we travel overseas or in business, invest overseas, we want to make sure that we are getting a good value. And usually exchange rates are expressed as a ratio. For example, dollar per British pound. If we were traveling to Great Britain, it would be British pound. So if the ratio is $1.50 per pound, British pound, then for every $1.50 that we would give to the British bank, we would only get a single pound. However, if the ratio is 0.75 per pound, then if we give the British bank 75 cents and we get a full pound in return, then it is a pretty good deal for us. And exchange rates change every day, and there are plenty of easy ways to get this information. Now, XE is a very good site for this type of information. And if you go to the website and you put a 1 in the first blank and GBP or Great Britain pound in the second blank and USD or US dollar in the third blank, then hit the blue arrow, the website will convert 1 pound to some portion of $1. Now I'm going to make this a little larger so you can see it better on the video. Now, that is not such a good deal for us, but it has been worse. One British pound is equal to $1.61. So if we want to buy something for, say, £2 in Great Britain, we actually have to pay $3.22. Now, it is a great deal for travelers from Great Britain. If they give us £1, we are going to give them $1.61. So if they want to buy something here that is $3.22, they only pay £2. Now, another good site is Oanda. And you basically do the same thing here, and it is very similar. And also, you can go to Yahoo Finance, and they have a currency converter as well. Now, the section that we're going to talk about now is the import related. In international business, we want to bring products from other countries to our country because it is cheaper. Now, every time we bring a product into this country, there's a possibility that we will have to pay a tax or duty on the product. And the tariff is actually the document that has a list of all the commodities and duty rates in it. Now, sometimes people call the import duty, which is a tax, a tariff as well. But it is important to understand that the document that sets forth all the duty rates is also called a tariff. So I'm going to take you on a bit of a journey now and show you where the duty rates come from, what you will pay if you want to import something, and briefly show you how the tariff is organized. Now, the tariff is housed on the website for the International Trade Administration, and here it is. Let me make this a little larger. Okay. Hold on just a second. Now, you can download a full copy of the tariff for any given year by downloading a full edition of the tariff, which is several thousand pages. For those of us like myself who work in international business, we usually download the full tariff. But let's say that you're only interested in one product. You would select 2013 HTSA Basic by chapter. And as you scroll through the list, you can see that all types of products are listed in the tariff. Now, let's say, just for fun, that you wanted to import a goat. Okay? So you would look through the tariff, and we are thinking that we're going to import a live goat. So we would go to Live Animals, click on Chapter 1. Let's get this larger. Okay. And now I just happen to know that a goat is classified under 0104. .20.0000. And that doesn't mean that I own a goat, so don't start any rumors. I just knew that goats were classified under there. So according to the tariff, I am going to pay 68% per goat that I import. But if you look at the line above it, if I were to import sheep, I would not pay any duty at all because it is free. Now, while I'm here, I'm going to briefly go over import quota, which is a limit on the number of products in a certain category that you can import. Now, every quota period, the government decides on how much the country can import. And sometimes they do it to protect our domestic industries, and sometimes they do it to control prices. But in this case, we are going to assume that we can only import, as a country, some set amount of goats. We will say that the United States can only import 100 goats. So during the quota period, we may have to pay up to 68 cents per goat unless we get it from one of these countries right here where we have a free trade agreement or there's a special relationship where we could bring the goats in for free. Now, after the quota period, we might have to pay up to $3 per goat. Now, I have simplified this a great deal, and I only want to convey the basics about the tariff, so this is just a very weak example of how duty rates are looked up. That $3 per goat or $3 per head figure could also mean that it is coming into a country from a specific country or under a specific circumstance that we want to discourage. So we charge $3 a goat. So like I said, this is just a basic presentation. Now the embargo is entirely different, and it means that there is a complete ban on the import of a product or from a particular country. So the embargoes can be by product, but most often it's against a particular country like Iran or North Korea, and those are countries that we do not have good relations with at this time. Now, I think that the book makes some good suggestions to those of you who would like to work in international trade or international business. Study and learn a language. Make friends with people from foreign countries so that you can learn about their cultures, and take as many global business classes as you can. Now, in response to international trade, post any questions that you have in the discussion board, and I will be happy to answer. Your classmates may also have some additional information for you, especially if they have spent time out of the country. Thank you.